introduce you now, Micah Kessler, as the new president of Congregation Beth Yeshurun.
For several months now, as we anticipate this day, which is a bit surreal for sure, my wife, Jean, has had one and only one piece of advice for me as far as what I need to do to be successful at this job. And this is totally serious. You really need to be more like Lori. Lori's nice. People like her. People don't always like you. The reality is that Lori, together with some other people that I'm going to mention, is such an amazing role model to me over the last 2 years that we've become friends. Over the last 1 year that we've communicated a lot. We always say to one another that we're a team, and she is such an incredible teammate. She is the most supportive person I've worked with in so long, and everything that's said is just truth about her, and it really is. She really has become a role model to me, and everything she described here made me sit there and feel a little bit. I mean, it's daunting. She accomplished a lot in line with what has always been over the last 2 years our primary priority, together with Andy, who really pushed the Belonging Project, and obviously with Jennifer, who carried it forward, and David in our executive committee. And she put a period on the idea of belonging in ways that we are going to continue to develop and continue to come up with new and creative ways, not just to get people to be here, but to make those experiences quality experiences. So I've got a theory that life cannot be predicted. And in fact, Rabbi Strauss has heard me say this for years, that certainty is a fiction. It's a drug that people are addicted to, but it's not real. That if you pay attention long enough, you come to learn to expect nothing in life and to know that anything is possible, and the only way to prepare for it is to surround yourself with as much positive energy as you can. That's why belonging is important. To surround yourself with people who support one another, because you have no idea what's going to happen. This is what I've learned from my parenting, from my lawyering, from my life, from my Judaism, and from my time at Beth Yeshurun. But a lot of you don't know me because I'm not a blue blood. I'm not like a fourth generation Beth Yeshurun people like most of the presidents of this synagogue have been. And so I want to go ahead and make this a little bit about me just for a second, because I want you to understand that it's because of my personal life experiences with uncertainty and addressing the questions that Judaism poses to us, that nothing is certain, that there are no right answers to questions. And so I'm going to tell a little bit of a biography to try to tell you why it is that I feel this way, and why it is that I took this unbelievable leap of faith that I would be able to dedicate as much time and energy as so many of the former presidents that are in this room have, to give as much energy and care as all of them have to doing this job. So this is my hopefully very brief and highly abridged history of Micah. Started out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, actually, long before I was born. This is 1946. This was my mom. My primary role model in life was my mother, and she has an interesting story, because in 1955, my mother, Carol Lewis at the time, became the first female Saturday bat mitzvah in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a story that we've told a long time. Apparently what they used to do for girls, they called them that, now they're all women, young women, but they were girls then. What they used to do for girls was on Friday night, they would get together and say one prayer together at the Friday night service, and that was it. But even at her conservative shul in Pittsburgh, they broke with tradition a year late. She's 14 in this bat mitzvah picture of hers. And she read from the Torah on Saturday morning Now, some of you may have heard of the conservative shul at which she gave this bat mitzvah. It's called Tree of Life. It was my parents' and my mother's and my grandparents' synagogue in Squirrel Hill. 7 years after this picture was taken, my parents were married at Tree of Life. And in fact, and I remember this from a kid, because I later got to go to family simchas in this basement of Tree of Life, and I actually have emblazoned in my head the picture of the tree that's painted on the wall, that was painted on the wall at Tree of Life. And, you know, with the uncertainty of life, part of what this means to us is that as Jews particularly, everything we interact with, everything that we see, everything that we experience is uncertain. That the very small things that you take for granted are frankly always at risk. They're always vulnerable. We are always vulnerable. We have been vulnerable for thousands of years. And the anecdote to that, and what we're talking about here, is the ability to fight that by creating a positive experience, by creating positive energy in the people around us. Because we don't know. Now, my brothers were born in the family after this, starting a year after this picture. They spent almost 8 years in Pittsburgh before moving to Houston in 1970 with the steel industry, as a lot of people did, and that's when I came along. This was along with my dad's red Volkswagen Beetle, which was about my favorite thing in the world. My parents went to another congregation in town when they moved to Houston, and that's where I was. That's where my brothers were bar mitzvahed. At the time, I don't know if some of you are probably old enough to remember Rabbi Kahn, who, in my image, I didn't really, at the time, understand the difference between what Rabbi Kahn was and what God was at the time. To this day, he's still like my image of when somebody says God, I just think of Rabbi Kahn. Growing up, my role models were my father, who was an engineer, and my mother, who went to law school while I was in elementary school. This picture isn't taken in 1980 when I was 9 years old, and it lives as a symbol, and it probably had a big part to do with why I was a lawyer. It has a big part to do with why, as she told me, to hire women lawyers because you can't get men to work. And so it turned out that actually currently my environment reflects that remark. And at this point in the story, we pause, and there's another character that enters the picture. It's a little bit early, but quite significantly, at the same time that, or actually about a year after my mother was graduating from law school, my wife Jean was relocating from South Africa to Houston, where her parents sent her to the Beth Yeshurun Day School. This is Jean's 5th grade class at Beth Yeshurun Day School in the 2nd year. Her best friends are still the people that are in that photograph. And what Jean told me was that it was her experience going from half of 4th, 5th, and 6th grade at Beth Yeshurun that gave her a feeling of what a synagogue was supposed to be. Now, at this particular point in time, we were going to skip 17 years. Now, one thing of great significance happened during the 17 years, actually, the first of a series of unfortunate events, to be quite honest. My mother passed away when I was in my first year of law school when I was a kid. And after that, I met Jean. Jean never met my mom, but we got married in 1999. We went on a honeymoon that included the Jewish sites of Venice, and we learned something that actually was a defining moment for me in Judaism. You don't think of the Jewish sites being centered in Italy, but this right here is a piece of art that's in our home that reflects the ghetto in Venice. It is the first ghetto, by that term, the first development of that word in language. And if you look carefully, you'll see that even the synagogues in the ghetto had to be hidden And you could identify them by the buildings with the 5 windows reflecting the books of the Torah. And what this reminded me, because at that point in my life, in my Jewish development, my aunt, other people in my life used to tell me about anti-Semitism, and I didn't feel it. Even though I grew up on the other side of town at a largely Christian high school, I just had never felt it, and I didn't know that it existed. But it was a reminder, and they said then, when things are good, Jews were accepted. When things are bad, Jews were the first people that were blamed. And that was actually the first time that I seriously considered that concept. Now, shortly after we were married, we started our family. I lost my father, and not too long after that, frankly, Jean lost her father. This is what life does. And it was at that point in our life, frankly, that we also started a family. And soon after we started a family, it was time for us to join a synagogue. And we joined Beth Yeshurun because Jean knew that's where she wanted to send her kids. Jean knew that that's what Judaism was. And she remembered the warm experiences that she had as a kid, and that's what she wanted for her children. And quickly there were children everywhere. There were so many children. Now, when I first walked into Beth Yeshurun at that point in time, I didn't know anybody. I mean, no one. The only people that I knew at Beth Yeshurun when we joined were a few guys that were in the JCC Basketball League, 2 of which are actually in the room, actually, truth be told, there was also one other person who was set up on a blind date with that didn't work out. And that person, and she's in this room as well. But over the years, there have been so many defining moments for us at Beth Yeshurun, both personal and not very personal, that are my image of what Beth Yeshurun is. It's my image of why it is that Beth Yeshurun is a nurturing environment that supports us, and they're not all positive. In fact, my very first one, besides a funeral, was when Michael Wiesenthal got sick. And many of you will remember this. And the community all came out, and we all got swabbed to get put on the bone marrow registry to support Michael, who, thank God, got better after that and is healthy today. And we're all still on that registry. To this day, the most tragic image that I can have in my mind is the image of the 2 coffins that were lined up next to each other in the front of Barg Sanctuary. When Robin and Josh, very close friends of ours, passed away. And I've never seen anything as awful as that image. And it happened serendipitously right after Rabbi Strauss and I happened to have spent one complete day with Josh. Just out of the blue. We had never done that before. And frankly, that's the day that I bonded with Rabbi Strauss. The reality is that we cannot survive without a community that gets us through times like that. You know, the community mobilized during those times, just like they did later on in Harvey, just like they did later on after COVID, just like they did, and we were honored to host after October 7th, and then on the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. Because this is not just a synagogue. This synagogue is the center of this community, and in my mind, the religious center of the entire Houston Jewish community. And the idea of being part of that is such an honor, and the idea of leading it is an unbelievable honor. Now, we raised our children at Beth Yeshurun. And as many of you know, Jean, following through with her feelings after her kids started here, left her job as a therapist and counselor, and started as a teacher in the day school. And in fact, this week finishes her 18th year as a teacher. at Beth Yeshurun, where she has made, it never stops. In fact, it happens once a week that somebody, a father, the bar mitzvah father just yesterday, Alan's son, came up to me and said, what an incredible job that Jeannie did. And in fact, the bar mitzvah mother last week did the exact same thing. They all come up to me and tell me what an incredible job that Jeannie did with their kids, teaching them to read, supporting them, loving them, like she did with our kids. Now, of course, in 2014, we went with Rabbi Strauss on the Beth Yeshurun mission trip to Israel, a defining experience for everybody who was involved on the trip. There were so many children there. It was amazing. And in fact, we learned when we got there, upon talking, that 3 people on the trip actually never had a formal bar mitzvah. And in fact, this is a picture of me with my bar mitzvah partners, Jean Kessler and Courtney Haas, and we were all bar mitzvah together during the trip to Israel. And then we had our own simchas, bar mitzvahs here. So the reality is that we do this, we raise our children here, and that's the most important thing that we do at this place. That's the most important thing that we do when we first come in here. And I'm not going to belabor the plans for the future, but we are going to embrace the fact that so many young people come here for the school and stay here for the synagogue, that they find that first foot in the door then. And this, of course, is my family, my wife Jean, who I've mentioned, my daughter Carolyn, who just last weekend graduated from the University of Texas. Reuben, who just finished his second year at the University of Tulsa, and his twin brother is not here because he is in Israel right now on a birthright trip, and he just also finished his second year of college. So the world tests us in so many ways, full of unanswerable questions. As Jews, we have a long history of being tested even more. So it started as me walking into a relatively new place where I didn't know anyone, became the center of our life together. When I came here, I knew no one. Now I know on a first-name basis probably at least half to 3/4 of the people in this room. Over a lifetime, you develop a debt of gratitude that you repay by giving your time and energy to Tikkun Olam, to repairing the world, to pay it forward, to honor what you are, to continue to build the community that raised you and gave you a sense of belonging and community. That's why it was easy to say yes when Jared Bloom first asked me to participate in leadership of the synagogue, and easy to say yes when David Stein and Lori encouraged me to dive in deeper. The clergy have been mentioned, and I certainly don't mean to slight them. Rabbi Strauss and Rachel Goldman and Sarah Fort, and of course, the short timer, Rabbi Morgan and Kathleen. I've grown so close to them, getting to sit on the bima over the last year or two, and they're just such incredible people. It's really kind of weird because I used to look up to rabbis like royalty, and now they're just good people. But these are my primary role models at my time at Beth Yeshurun in leadership and as I move forward. These people, you have no idea how much they care about the synagogue. And it's not to say anybody else doesn't, and I've gotten amazing advice from several past presidents, and so many people have flooded me with their offers of assistance. But, I mean, nobody's intensely working as hard at improving this synagogue and made so many differences as Jared. David had his fingers in everything, and just everybody flocked to him because they respected him so much and so much insight and could deal with anyone and turn anyone into a friend. And Lori has compassion that I aspire to have. These are the people who will guide my way and who will, I hope, continue to help me. Now, I want to, I think that the main part of the speech was supposed to be our plans for the years, but I don't think that gets very interesting. So I am going to emphasize what some of our primary strategic initiatives are going to be. I thank you for the indulgence with the time. It's too embarrassing to get up and walk out, so you're stuck listening to just a couple more minutes. We need to define and expand our legacy program. It is cliche to say that 48 to 49% of our operating budget comes from dues, and the rest has to come from magic in various forms. But the reality is that the long-term commitment to the legacy program requires us to be more robust about doing so, to be more specific about our parameters and goals in math, to be progressing and making sure everyone is informed how to participate, what their role is in the program for when it's time for them to participate, and not just assume that everybody's going to do it tomorrow, but to understand that most people are going to do it in 5 to 10 years or more. And we're going to build that out with the help of Meredith Siegel, who's also already been working very hard on this issue, as of course is Jennifer Rosenzweig. Second, we're going to emphasize transparency and create awareness in the membership experience. It's often said, the reality is that the operating expenses are significantly more than the average amount that a person pays in dues. But people don't understand how much, and it's important that everybody understand that, and we're going to create transparency and awareness of this so that people know exactly how much they're paying relative to everyone else. People know exactly what we're doing with that money, because right now I don't think that that transparency exists, and I think that creates a wall between a lot of our members and the synagogue, who think that something like it's the wizard behind the curtain or something. And we're going to pull that curtain back so that people understand exactly what the situation is and that that isn't clouded in anything. And then third, and this is probably most significant to our ongoing belonging, is that we're going to inform, empower, and engage board members and lay leadership. What do I mean by this? This is really for the board members. Right now, the biggest complaint that I've heard over time from board members and leadership is that the decisions that get discussed at board meetings have already happened. And that we have an unbelievably talented board. Lawyers, doctors, business owners, medical professionals, people who have decades, hundreds of years of experience with this synagogue and in their fields. We have to tap that. The way we do that is very easy, and I've been working with Jennifer Rosenzweig, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. Board meetings are going to change a little bit. What we're going to do at the board meetings now is that each particular month there's going to be a subject matter that we're going to discuss, a subject matter that's essential to the operation of the shul. And you will be given the information about this ahead, along with the questions, and subject matter experts will be brought in to answer questions. The idea being that these will happen months before the actual decision on that issue has to be made, so that we can put our incredibly talented staff in a position to succeed and to know our input. Now, of course, I think everybody on the board knows exactly what I'm talking about. I think some of the people on honor are like, what the heck is he talking about? But the reality is that this is how we create engagement. When we ask people to become lay leaders, when we ask people to be leaders in this synagogue, we are going to equip them with all of the information that they need to meaningfully do so. I am daunted by the task of being president of Beth Yeshurun. I hope I've conveyed to you why I'm doing it and what's important about it. I want to amplify the positive energy that Lori and those before her have created. And I am so appreciative of the partnership of everybody in this room in doing so. Thank you.